the truth is, at the end of the day, you're the meme. You're doing all the meme stuff, all the joke stuff. You don't take none of these reviews seriously, and you're just a big jokeman. You're just full of jokes.
Hi everyone, Vegan Thinny Diet Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Banks record, Goddess. This is the debut full-length LP of California-based singer-songwriter Banks, which her label built up to the release of not so subtly with almost an album's worth of singles. Nearly every track on Goddess has been previously released, leaving very little to the imagination when going into this record, which just makes it feel like a random assembly of tracks that just happen to be on the same CD, but that was their call. It's like the PR strategy behind this record was to throw every song against the wall until some of them stuck. And a good handful of these tracks did, and rightly so. Tracks like Waiting Game and Alibi and Brain. Banks collaborates with a series of co-songwriters across these songs, producers too, which include people like Shlomo, Sohn, Totally Enormous Extinct Dinosaurs, and Jamie Woon. Given those names, you can probably safely assume going into this record, you are going to hear some alternative R&B, some modern, electronically tinged soul, and that is exactly what we get. Even though there are many cooks surrounding the pot here, we get a pretty sonically and stylistically focused album, which would be fine if it wasn't for the fact that this record drags on for a nearly one-dimensional 60 minutes. I don't think this record is interesting from beginning to end, but Banks does deliver some good songs, and she does have a style. And this style is quite similar to that of Jamie Woon or James Blake. Essentially, at the core of these songs, we have a singer-songwriter, but the singer-songwriter is just surrounded, enveloped in all of these electronics. Like on the song Waiting Game, which has this very slow, plodding beat, this heavy, heavy bass, and just this and some of the synthesizers get thicker and thicker and thicker as the song progresses. In that, it's not too unlike a song such as Wilhelm Scream. And then there's tracks on this LP like the title track, which are far more minimal and sparse. Banks' singing really is spotlighted in this beat. But even as things get toned down a little sonically, maybe Banks is going in more of a down-tempo direction, she never loses track of her verses and choruses. Nearly every track here is very song-driven, very structured in sort of that A-B style. Most of the tracks on this record actually land somewhere around the 4-minute mark. It's almost as if every single one of them is following a pretty clear and concise formula. Structurally and sonically, the only time that breaks is when we have a bit of an acoustic ballad or something like that, where the singing actually ends up being pretty great. But the instrumentals on this record that are more synthetic, they're built out of some of the blandest electronics I've heard this year. Songs like Alibi and Goddess and Stick. I feel like I'm listening to an utterly plain take on the sounds of, like, the self-titled Fever Ray record. In the current alternative R&B world, where you have people like FK Twigs making noise, there's no excuse to have instrumentals that sound this plain. It's typically the songs that are really what end up shining on this record. I do like the song that is at the core of the song Alibi that kicks this record off. It has a stunning pre-chorus. Banks really reaches up into her upper register at this moment in the song, creating just this really strong sense of emotional intensity. It's gorgeous. I love the song Waiting Game. The gentle pianos on that track contrast nicely with the electronics. I'm loving the pre-chorus there as well. 'Cause it isn't the same. Really weak moment in the song, really frail, really tender. And the song Someone New too, which is a very pretty ballad about, I guess, returning to someone in a romantic sense. So there are some good songs on this record, but another thing that's kind of hit or miss about this LP is Banks' vocals. Her mid-range at times is kind of anonymous, inconspicuous. I couldn't really easily pick her out of a lineup if I just had to merely rely on her mid-range, especially when she's singing very quietly in a very subdued manner. It just really breezes by me and doesn't grip me in any significant way. But when she reaches up into that upper register of hers, these songs can get quite powerful. However, her lower register really just loses me, especially on tracks like Brain, where her singing in such a deep way sounds quite goofy. Sometimes she really delivers a captivating performance, sometimes she's really selling these songs, and sometimes she's not. Some of the more subdued tracks in the track list here, like This Is What It Feels Like, or just Dreadfully Boring, or Fuck 'Em Only We Knew, which sounds like a synth pop nap. And as far as the tone, I guess the brightness of Banks' voice and the synths and the sound of the percussion, this track is very, just a little muddy, kind of like demo quality. Contrast these tracks with You Should Know Where I'm Coming From, and Banks' singing on this song is so much more emotionally gripping. It's commanding. Overall, I'm very on the fence with this record. There are things that I like about this record. There are songs that kind of give me hope for the future for Banks. However, she does not deliver 60 minutes of great tunes on this thing. Yet the record is 60 minutes long. I think this album is just like a touch of overexposure. There are some songs that clearly pale in comparison to others, yet they made the cut onto this disc anyway. A more concise album of the best Banks has to offer so far would have been much more appropriate. And sometimes the best of Banks' best isn't even that fantastic. Even favorites of mine like Waiting Game, at the very end of this song, I was kind of hoping for a slightly bigger vocal climax. Instead of rising up with the electronic instrumentation, Banks vocally kind of tends to keep it down here in the yellow. But if you're digging this record, I completely understand why it does have its moments, and again, I don't really see any reason to lose faith in Banks as an artist as of right now. I'm feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this thing. Transition, if you've given this record a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Banks, Goddess, forever.